Good morning, everyone! This is Jason from Good Morning Games, and this year, in celebration of Zelda's 35th anniversary, I've tasked myself with completing all the mainline 3D Zelda games. Well, it was originally all the Zelda games, but I quickly realized that might be impossible, so I changed my goal to only the 3D ones, but what are you gonna do? Unfortunately, as I near completion of Twilight Princess, I'm having a tough time deciding what to play next, knowing that just about any of these games could be remade or re-released on the Nintendo Switch any day now. However, as I started thinking about this, I kept coming to one conclusion. How can Nintendo do a big celebration of Zelda's 35th anniversary without including what many consider to be the single greatest video game of all time? The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. For many, myself included, Ocarina of Time was the first game that truly felt like it took the player on a grand adventure. Admittedly, I was too young when games like the original Legend of Zelda or A Link to the Past came out, but I will never forget stepping out into Hyrule Field for the first time and seeing a huge world to explore, or wandering around Castletown, which at the time seemed a lot bigger than it does now, and checking out shops, or checking out this freak! Goo! The world, the story, and, of course, the music remain iconic to this day. Ocarina of Time received dozens of Game of the Year awards and has been listed as the greatest game of all time by outlets like Edge, Entertainment Weekly, IGN, Metacritic, Game Informer, and many more. So, with a legacy like this, it has to beg the question: how can Nintendo properly celebrate The Legend of Zelda's 35th anniversary without Ocarina of Time? Well, in my opinion, they can't. The question is, what will they do? Well, I believe there are three and a half options.
Option 1.
Nintendo releases the N64 version of Ocarina of Time on the Switch. Now, this could either be by adding the game to the Switch's online store for 10 or 20 bucks. Now, that might not seem fair, but honestly, I'd pay for it. Or, I think the more likely option, Nintendo unveils that N64 games will be added to the Nintendo Switch Online starting with Ocarina of Time!
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Now, while I would be incredibly excited about this, for the simple fact we've all been begging Nintendo for N64 or actually any system besides NES and Super Nintendo for so goddamn long, this is probably the worst of all the options. Despite the N64 being incredible when it was released, and still great to this day, we have to remember that Nintendo did make some improvements when they remade the game in 2011, which is why I think it's more likely we'll see
Option 2.
Considering Nintendo and Japanese developer Grezzo already remade Ocarina of Time for 2011's Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS, it seems more likely that this would be the version we see released on Switch over the original N64 version. There were some improvements to the visuals, Link's animation, the process of equipping and unequipping some items, like those iron boots, the addition of Sheikah Stones, which help the player when they're lost, fairies now refill all your health instead of just 8 hearts, and there was some improvements to the water temple to make it a little more clear what in God's name you're supposed to be doing in a dungeon that was created by Satan himself.
Get me out of here!
As well as some other improvements. I could be wrong here, but this option seems a little more likely to me since they already put in the work to do this remake. However, I think that the option that is probably most likely is
Option 2.5.
I think we'll see an upscaling of Ocarina of Time 3D. Now, I don't want to get ragged on here, so please don't immediately dislike this video if I sound ignorant, but from what I understand, upscaling a game from the 3DS to the Nintendo Switch isn't too difficult a task. Considering we are seeing the 3DS game, Miitopia, release next month on the Switch, which, by the way, is being upscaled by Grezzo. Coincidence? I think not. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect an upscaled version of Ocarina of Time 3D. I don't know how in-depth this upscaling would be, but I've seen some YouTube videos of people who have upscaled Ocarina of Time 3D all the way up to 4K, and if Nintendo could even just make it a clean 1080p, I'd fork over everything I have to my name.
Shut up and take my money!
Option 3.
The third option would be a complete remake. I don't expect this whatsoever, but it's fun to dream. A complete ground-up remake of one of Nintendo's most beloved games of all time would send the entire world into a frenzy.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
If you haven't yet, do yourself a favor and just search Ocarina of Time Remake into YouTube and just look at some of the fan-made versions of this game. It's absolutely unbelievable. If I'm being honest, I don't think this is a realistic possibility quite yet, but I do see it as possible at some point in the next, I don't know, decade, so let's just keep our fingers crossed. So, there you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts on 3.5 ways Nintendo could do us all a favor and give us something we all want, as well as something people who haven't played the game didn't even know they wanted. If I had to take a guess, I'm expecting a small upscaling of Ocarina of Time 3D is coming. I know it's completely possible that absolutely none of these options happen, but just let me dream. What do you think? Are we gonna see Ocarina of Time release on the Switch in celebration of Zelda's 35th anniversary? What will it look like? Please like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to let me know what you think down below, and follow us on Twitter at GM Games Podcast. We do a weekly podcast here that you can find at any place you listen to podcasts, and we're gonna start cranking out more short videos like this as much as we can. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day. Good Morning Games, out!